So we've got one more to talk about today. Will the SonoFlow Pro outdo the SonoFlow? Namaste, we're DHRME, dodgy headphones reviewer making eye contact. You blinked first.
So the headlining feature here is battery. So let's just get that out of the way before we talk about the important stuff. So you get 65 hours with ANC on and 100 without. And the last time the old SonoFlow had 50 hours with ANC on and 70 without. And that's a pretty big upgrade. Those numbers were pretty crazy to begin with, but this is very good as well. And you'll charge your headphones that much less frequently. The main thing that seems to have contributed to this is the Bluetooth being upgraded from 5.0 to 5.4, which will make the connection more efficient and blah, blah, blah. But there you go. It's a nice to have, I think, considering the numbers are already so good, but it is still not the reason to get these headphones. Now, in terms of build, let's start with what's the same compared to the old SonoFlow. Now, these are still foldable. You still get a hard shell case. You still get those hollow, cheap feeling buttons. And overall, I'll be honest, it's still very creaky. I've heard reviews saying, it's a bit less creaky when you're moving around. I didn't feel that, maybe very slightly, but these are not like a huge upgrade in that sense. And the ear cup size and depth seems to be the same. But there are a few differences. The headband adjustment is less creaky. So it's less, that rattling kind of sound. So this is the new. In addition, I do think that the padding on the ear cups is enhanced. It's not like a huge difference, but if you put them side by side, so this is the old SonoFlow and this is the new one. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit plusher and at least the material feels nicer. But again, it's not one of those differences where you're gonna say, oh, it's a clear upgrade. Let's talk about how they look. That is interesting.
I think they look pretty classy. They've got that matte plastic look, and the faux leather just kind of makes it feel generic, but also nice. Doesn't look cheap to the eye. It does have shiny accents though, and more pronounced branding in the gold color as opposed to the lighter subtle silver on the old SonoFlow. Luckily, there's still no branding on the ear cups, and the headband branding is limited to only one side. There are some wins and some losses in looks though. The older SonoFlow has 3 colors, whereas the Pro just comes in 2 colors, black and blue. Okay, active noise cancelling. The SonoFlow Pro got an upgrade in their tier from the older SonoFlow. More suppression of the low end and voices. Not quite as much as the Sony XM4, but very, very close. Still a very much tier A, guys. And then for transparency, there's again a bump up in tier for the SonoFlow Pro. They now come in at tier C as opposed to tier D on the older SonoFlow. But there's still a lot of room for improvement. The amount of low end and voices let in has improved, but still sounds very much suppressed. Remember the horrendous white noise on the SonoFlow? So that's been brought down to a minimum luckily, but there is a tick now and then in the right ear cup, like a fast dripping tap or faucet or whatever, the thing that water comes out. And that whole ticking was quite annoying that it wasn't very pleasant to wear for a long period of time. And the way you can adjust ANC is using a dedicated ANC button on the headphones itself, but you can also hop into the app and change it there. You do get 3 options there: off, ANC, and transparency. All right, let's talk about how the microphones on the SonoFlow Pro did. In the wind, they were trash. You couldn't hear what Rowan was saying. You predominantly heard the wind or nothing at all. And in noise, they did do very well with cars in the background. Especially when Rowan was talking loudly.
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3.
You barely heard the cars in the background, and Rowan's voice was quite clear. It didn't sound processed. However, don't let this test fool you guys. If you're in a cafe or an office space, then the other person on the call will hear those voices quite audibly. So beware, if you're using this in general low-end situations in terms of ambient noise, then these will be fine. But if it's going to be voices around you, then these may not be great. Then for Fachmann controls, you can answer hang up and adjust the volume, and that's it. There's no ability to mute straight from the headphones. nor can you change the ANC mode while on a call. The ANC mode that you were on before picking up the call is the one that it will be stuck on. You cannot also open the app while you're on a call.
Now let's go on to the extras. You still get multi-point with LDAC on both. That's great news. And there is no pull connection, so that's a bit of a bummer. But I think the biggest difference here is, and that's good and bad, is the newer app that One More is using. So before this, for the SonoFlow, we used the One More Music app, and now we're using the One More app, no music. So the app does look cleaner, it's better designed, but a lot of people seem to have problems with it. I don't know if they're using the old app or there's just some connection issues. We did face one clear issue, and that's a big one because the next section we come to is sound, is when we tweaked the custom EQ in the app, it crashed every time. It just kind of restarted the whole app. And every time I started to do this. So I had to stick to EQ presets to kind of test the sound and, tweak my sound. I hope that One More fixes this with a software update. Now, sound-wise, again, not a huge difference, but this is one place where I think there's enough of a difference for you to say, oh, I prefer the Pro over the SonoFlow. And the first place where there's a difference is the EQ shift. What we call EQ shift, it basically means when you change the sound from ANC on to normal mode, the sound character changes. So, and that was very clear on the SonoFlow as this graph shows, but on the Pro, you can see that the shift has kind of been fixed. There is still some variability, but you can say it's kind of fixed. But overall, considering most people will be listening on the default settings with ANC on, the SonoFlow Pro does have a little bit more of a V shape with a pronounced recess in the mids, but also a bit more bass and a little bit more presence in the ear gain region. And while that may or may not be your taste, the fact that the sound is more consistent in both modes, I think counts for something. The SonoFlow Pro felt a bit more enjoyable to me, despite not having access to that EQ. But none of these is going to blow your mind. They're just I think the best way for me to characterize the sound is, it's not wrong. Nothing sounds overly off, nothing sounds overly fancy or super dynamic or whatever. And this brings me to the conclusion. There are some small differences between the two, but you know what? The SonoFlow was launched at $99. I think it was a couple of years back at this point. And this one is launched at $89. And you know what? I'm a big fan of this strategy. Even if the changes are, minuscule, I think as they are, like this video showed, I really like One More strategy of taking a low price point and innovating and iterating there and giving you a better product for that, rather than some of the competitors, Soundcore, going up in price and trying to break into higher priced markets. Now, both are valid strategies, but you have to do them well. And I think One More is doing this strategy really well. The OG SonoFlow was a very good pick, and with a lower starting price, the SonoFlow Pro is just as good a pick, enough of an upgrade for me to say they're worth it at the launch price. But the thing is, you also get the SonoFlow for some ridiculous prices now. So if the price difference, I would say, is about $30 or $40, yeah, get the SonoFlow because you can tweak that sound and not much has changed really. But if that doesn't matter to you, I think at $89, the SonoFlow Pro is also a very, very good pick. Well done, One More. And I think we're going to say it's time that you don't start spending too much money on ANC headphones. For most of the world, these products should be good enough.
Quick disclaimer, guys, One More did send out the SonoFlow Pro to both of us for review purposes, but this is by no means a sponsored video, but our real, raw take on these headphones. A big, big thanks to our patrons and YouTube members for supporting us. A special thanks, as always, goes to our highest tier, the Fuckman tier. So thank you, Gamma Panda and Paula, for your support, as always. You've been seeing us in One More Flow of the Sono, and we've been DHRME. Doei!